HRN listeners. As we celebrate our 15th year, we are deepening our commitment to giving voice to the next generation of food systems storytellers, and we need your help. Our internship and fellowship programs help activate new possibilities for underrepresented and underestimated young people through experiential journalism, audio engineering, and production training. Through these unique programs, HRN helps food equity stewards build essential workforce readiness skills that expand their potential and foster economic mobility. Please consider supporting these critical programs. And with a minimum donation, you can be entered to win a dinner for two at an amazing restaurant in one of 8 cities and tickets to a concert at a great venue in one of those cities. We have incredible partners across the country who have donated, as they also share our passion for helping to educate the next generation of food systems storytellers. Check out heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. That's heritageradionetwork.org/15 to donate and enter to win today. And make sure you donate before March 31st. Thank you.
Today's program is brought to you by the Dairy Farm Families of Wisconsin, the Wisconsin Milk Marketing Board. Did you know that today Wisconsin produces more than 600 varieties, types, and styles of American, international style, and original cheese that win more awards than any other state or country? To learn more, visit eatwisconsincheese.com.
You're listening to Heritage Radio Network. We're a member-supported food radio network broadcasting over 35 weekly shows live from Bushwick, Brooklyn. Join our hosts as they lead you through the world of craft brewing, behind the scenes of the restaurant industry, inside the battle over school food, and beyond. Find us at heritageradionetwork.org.
Welcome to the Grape Nation, your weekly wine journey. I got to tell you, I'm very excited about today's show. Our guest is Pascaline Lepeltier, Master Sommelier, Beverage Director, and partner at Rouge Tomate in New York City. We'll talk about what else, Chenin Blanc, and every other exciting wine you should be drinking now, and a lot of other stuff too. We'll also taste for our weekly wine sip, not a Chenin Blanc, because that's what Pascaline would expect. I'm Sam Ben-Ruby. Stay with us for the Grape Nation on the Heritage Radio Network. We bring wine to the people. Pascaline Lepeltier is a partner and beverage director at Rouge Tomate in New York City. Pascaline is one of 146 Master Sommeliers in the U.S., of which 24 are women. Those numbers may have changed, but they're pretty close to what they are. She's received too many awards to mention, but here's a few, okay? Pascaline was one of the 5 best new U.S. sommeliers by Wine and Spirits magazine. She was one of the new wine prophets by Time Out New York. She was one of the 40 under 40 beverage influencers by Wine Enthusiast. She was a second runner-up in the best French wine sommelier 3-4 times, right? I don't know if that's good or bad. She is a StarChefs.com rising star. She's written for prominent wine guides for Europe and the U.S. and has been featured in numerous food and wine publications, including the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, Decanter, Food and Wine, and Savour, to name a few. And, we're almost done, Rouge Tomate has been nominated for a 2017 James Beard Award for Outstanding Wine Program, which is a very high honor. Welcome to the Grape Nation, Pascaline.
Thanks for that.
Pascaline, we have a lot of stuff to talk about, and I hope we have enough time to cover everything, so we'll try to get to it. But one of the things I want you to do before we get into all different subjects and things in different directions, I know you have an incredibly interesting background, and I think it would be interesting for our listeners, our audience, to sort of hear your journey in life and wine as to how you got to where you are, which is right now Rouge Tomate in New York as a partner and running the whole beverage program there. So be selective where you should spend a little time and places where you should spend a lot. But get us up to speed.
So how you arrive where I am today in Brooklyn, in Roberta's. Yeah.
Yes, the L train.
I have a little bit of a specific background, but I think like a lot of great wine people I know around me, that came to wine by passion and not by being forced, by their parents to follow a career.
It's funny you say that because your parents didn't force you, but you grew up in France in the Loire Valley in a wine region.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I didn't really drink wine until I was probably 20. So I can tell you, I was surrounded by vineyard. But, French culture with wine is not necessarily what you think about unless you're in a very specific family or you're in a restaurant family, right. Or when, a lot of people are just buying their wine at the supermarket and yes, they're not as connoisseur as they pretend to be.
Right.
I think we have one in our DNA, but we don't really understand it. So no, I came to wine very late. I was lucky to be pretty good at school, and I wanted to become a philosophy teacher. So I studied philosophy in France. Maybe I become too good of a philosopher because I realized I was too young to teach philosophy. So I took a year break after I'm finishing my master in philosophy. I was starting to prepare a PhD and going for teaching at university. So I was on that path, very academic path. Parents not at all in wine, living in a wine region, but we were really drinking Côte de Bourg, Bordeaux, and I was drinking Cointreau and beer and spirits and crap and all that kind of thing. Not Cointreau is not crap, but I was drinking all the really, really bad stuff I'm very ashamed of today. But my philosophy teacher was in wine. He liked wine a lot, so I kind of got influenced by him. And when I decided to take a break, I went to work in catering industry, to make a bit of money. And
while you were still in school?
Yeah, when I was still in school, I wanted to do something, the thing is I was very lucky and I didn't really have to work until a certain point of my life. And then, I was really thinking a lot, studying philosophy, and when you think about what is work, what does that mean, pain, what does that I was like, man, I never worked in my life. So I went to work during summertime, and the job I found was in catering company, and I really liked it. I was like, wow, the food world is awesome. It was a high-end catering company, so we were really doing really beautiful food, high-end events, good wine, and I was like, wow, my philosophy teacher likes wine. I like this kind of restaurant stuff. So when I decided to take a break from philosophy, and my parents were like, you sure? I said, yeah. I said, okay, I'll give you a couple of months. I was like, okay, I should kind of dig that restaurant a little bit more. So I tried to enter a culinary school, and they didn't want me.
Why?
Because it's very, very difficult in France to change career. And they were like, wow, you are 22, you have already all this right. Background in philosophy, these diplomas and everything. You would be stupid to go.
What were you going to go in as? Cooking?
Wine, no,
service?
Front of the house, front of the house service. And they were like, this is... And I wanted something practical. I was like, I need to learn. And it's not like here, like in France, it's very difficult to just go and get a job or do an internship. Like, it's not very easy.
Right.
So I got kicked out. They told me, you are stupid. Don't go into the restaurant business. It's bad. You don't make any money. It's a dead hand.
Like it's worse than the philosophy business?
Kind of, yeah.
Maybe.
Not sure which one is we are making more money in, but and so I finally find a school that allowed me to do. I went back, in fact, to university, and I did an MBA in hospitality management. And
so you got a master's in philosophy and then an MBA in hospitality?
Yeah.
Wow.
But it was my only way to get
Right.
the ability to get an internship.
You had to.
I had to. So I did that, and they had a lot of, and it was in my hometown, it was in Angers, so I grew up in the Loire and that part, and they had some wine class. And without me noticing, I started to attend every wine class possible. I just got the bug. I was like, wow, I love that. Night class, wine class, weekend at the wineries and all that stuff. So when I ended up my internship, and I was like, what do I want to do with my life? I was working again in a catering company. I was very lucky to work on a project that involved the Bernard Arnault, the owner of LVMH, that also owns Chateau d'Yquem. And we prepared his wedding. It was the last mission I had during my last internship to finish my program. And so the wedding of his daughter happened to be there, and they were preparing pairing to go with the wedding. They were in Paris doing tasting and food, and was there. And I tried 1937 Yquem.
Jesus.
And I more than tried. My maitre d' brought me half a bottle of 1937 Yquem in original bottle. And like that day, I was like, okay, it's not catering, it's not restaurant, it's not MBA management, it's wine. It has to be wine. So I went to my parents and said, listen, I want to become a sommelier.
So hold on one second, because I want people to understand. Chateau d'Yquem is a wine. It is a sweet wine, a Sauterne, and it is somewhat cloying and sweet with a lot of terrific characteristics. It's a dessert wine. It's spelled D-Y...
D''Y-Q-U-E-M.
Right, and it's probably the greatest French dessert wine.
Yeah, it's Yquem is a myth. It's
right.
It's, as you said, is a dessert wine. It's what we call a botrytis, noble rot wine.
The grape botricizes; it gets almost rotten and sweet.
Absolutely, concentrating flavors and sugar and acid and giving an incredible power and ageability to the wine. And Yquem has been, it's been called the king of the wine. So
let's continue. So you tasted it at the Arnaud tasting wedding planning thing, and was it a life-changing thing?
It was a life-changing. It was a life-changing because I knew I liked wine. I knew already I was in touch with winemaker, and I really, when you start to do something and it's, I wouldn't say simple, but you are connected with it. Some people is music. You put them in front of a guitar and they start to play. It's like, oh my God, and you struggle to put free stuff together. I don't know. Wine is like, wow, I get it. There is a connection. But that wine was like, okay, there is so much to say about a bottle like that. There is so much what wine can convey and what can bring together and can embody. And suddenly I found in a wine the medium I was looking for in philosophy in a certain way, like a focus point that could lead to so many fields. And I was like, okay, I need to get into wine. And so I told my parents. They were like, are you sure? I said yes. I was 25.
They were supportive?
Yeah, I think they were. I think it was, in fact, they were happier. Probably I went into restaurants than in philosophy. I think they were like, at least you can find a job. So I was lucky in my hometown. They had that school where you can become a sommelier. It's really considered a very basic diploma. And they were accepting people until 25, so I just sneak in last minute. I was with 16-year-old boy.
Oh, boy.
And the deal was 1 week at school learning about wine and 3 weeks in a restaurant. And I got in, and I found an amazing restaurant to work in. Like, same thing, I got kicked out of so many restaurants, they didn't want to hire me. Saying, you have in philosophy major, you have MBA in food management, what do you want?
Wrong background?
Wrong background.
Were you a little too old, or the age wasn't an issue?
Yeah, it was.
What about being a woman?
That was the three of them combined.
Woman thing?
The woman thing, was there, because certain positions were just open for men.
Right.
Too old, yes. And too many diploma. But I found one place. It was a 2 Michelin star in Brittany. And I got in because the chef, Monsieur Torel, loved books and wanted me to help him with his book collection at the end of the shift. So I got
That was Jacques Torel?
Jacques Torel,
And the restaurant was?
L'Auberge Bretonne.
And where it was in?
It was in Brittany.
It was
he retired, and he has an amazing. And I didn't realize the wine I was going to work with. So it's how I get into wine. It's a mix of luck.
He took you under.
He took me under his wing, and he's like old chef style. So it was a little bit
pretty classic training, though.
Classic training.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, so it's how I get into
So you
wine.
work with him for how long?
I worked with him for a bit more than a year.
Okay.
So I got my very, very, very classic French training then, and then at school my teacher was very into natural wine and organic and biodynamic farming. So I got both worlds in a year. I was with my teacher in class. We were he was teaching us about the new way of thinking about wine. We were visiting biodynamic producer. So I was very exposed to what was happening at that time. So it was in 2005, 2006. And I had very classic training with Mr. Torel.
So the natural organic thing was a good opportunity because your teacher had an interest in it. You got into natural, organic, biodynamic wines
Right off the batch.
Early, yeah.
I got right off the batch, and I got it the right way, which is, I think, like I was just exposed to the winemaker around me, and around Angers at that time it was just an incredible dynamic for this kind of winemakers. We had Nicolas Joly, which is an emblematic voice for biodynamic wine in Savonnières. So it's like it was 5-minute drive from my parents. So I met Nicolas very early on. So I was exposed to biodynamic very early on, and a lot of other iconic producers from the region. So I saw. And it's where I learned wine, and I did my prunings and harvest and work in a vineyard with these guys and taste a bunch of wines without that to be trendy. So it appears to me that was the way to go naturally.
Right. It appealed to your sensibility too.
Yeah.
Besides the way it was then around you, it made sense too.
It makes sense, and you could understand. I was
sustainable and
the farming. You could compare vineyards.
Right.
Like farm different ways, they were side by side. You saw the results. You're like, there is a no-brainer. So that changed my vision of wine from the batch. I think I was very lucky to learn with these guys and learn with winemakers. So it's very different when you're in school far away from vineyards, but when you can go every weekend and taste out of the barrel and do some leaf pulling and talk with them, and so it makes a huge difference, I think. And then I got that very extraordinary bottle list I had at Monsieur Torel, so I could taste wine from the 50s and 60s and 70s and all the big names, and so I got both of both worlds.
So you were tasting classic wines. You were tasting Bordeaux's and Burgundies, the whole thing.
Bordeaux, Burgundy.
Even though you were in the Loire and there were wines indigenous characteristic, you had the Torel experience gave you exposure to all of that. So not soon after that, a couple of major things happen. You go for your Master Somm, and you leave France, right?
Yeah, so no, what happened after that, I left Monsieur Torel because I wanted an international experience. And so Rouge Tomate and we found each other, they found me, and they wanted somebody that was able to do some process and to be also an operational person. So I got in charge of the beverage program, and so Rouge hired me in 2007, and the idea was to develop a program based on health and nutrition that was mimicking what we are doing with the food at the restaurant. So how can we drink better? What does that mean to drink well? How do we need to understand the ingredients we are using and the product we are using in a restaurant? So I work with nutritionists and scientists in Paris and then in Brussels to create that beverage program, and I helped out to open the restaurant in New York. So I was hired for that. The restaurant.
So early on there was a attention and an eye towards...
It was from the very beginning. I was hired because I already had that attention. So the restaurant has been focusing on how to eat and drink healthier, but with taste since the beginning of the project of the restaurant. So I think it was very forward thinking in 2007. Now everybody's, you see the juices, you see your nutrients, you talk about ingredients all the time and additives and all that. It was very forward thinking at that time. So we built a program. I helped out a little bit with the opening in New York, but the opening in New York was done with an American team.
What year was that?
It's 2008.
2008.
And
that was Rouge Tomate.
That was Rouge Tomate on the Upper East Side.
Right.
And because we're a Belgium-owned company, our owner is from Brussels, so it took some time also to develop the first one in Brussels and then to move it to the US. And after 6 months, opened in the US, as I was back and forth with the team, they asked me to move for a couple of months just to help out to reshape the program, and I stayed. And I've been.
So it became a permanent thing.
It became a permanent thing.
And it fit right.
It fits great. I think it's so important when you go to work every day and you know that what you are doing matches your value.
Right.
Like I couldn't be prouder of what our owner is trying to achieve.
We'll talk about that. But during that time on, were you studying for your Master Sommelier?
Yeah, it started when I arrived.
Very difficult, right? Took multiple years?
Yeah, it took me 4 years.
Wow.
So I could take one exam a year. Like 4.5 years it took me. It was great because I get it by chance thanks to my friend Laura Maniac, who is a Master Sommelier, and she was a very big mentor for me when I arrived. And Laura at Corkbuzz,
she had her
MS, and she was like, you should do it, And I was also looking for something to help me with my green card, like an American diploma to be able to stay. So I got into that, and I realized that it's an amazing way to keep yourself on your toes, and to force you to study and things that otherwise your taste or your opinion may not make you study. So I was very lucky to get into that path.
Yeah, Laura's going to be on the show in the middle of March.
Oh, she's an amazing woman.
So you get to Rouge Tomate in the States. You're on the Upper East Side. Then something happens. You close the place down. I mean, you got the whole thing set up, the whole mindset and vibe, healthy, sustainable, natural wines, food. You shut down, and now what?
So yeah, we closed in 14 for structural reasons, like for a lot of other companies in Manhattan. It's getting tricky with especially with the rent, make business very difficult. So we decided to close and to relocate, and so we reopened.
What year was the decision made to close?
2014.
14, okay.
14, and
you reopened the new Rouge Tomate
in September
of 2016.
Yeah, end of September. Yeah.
So almost a couple of years there.
2 years, yeah.
But you didn't sit by idly. You were in a lot of places, right? What'd you do with your time? You realized you had time.
Yeah, we were supposed to open faster.
Right.
But New York doesn't make things easy.
Your plans were changed.
The plans were changed a lot. It's the building we are lucky to be in. It's a beautiful building in Chelsea on 18th Street, but it's a landmark building. It was a carriage house, stable from 1863, and the amount of permit and work were just extraordinarily high, and just was way more complex and longer than we thought. So yeah, I was lucky to be able to have a little bit of time while we were also managing the project, because it was a very ambitious renovation project, and I was involved at every stage. So it was like working on that, having a bit of time to travel and back and forth. So I took some time, to go and visit producer and growers in area. I thought were very important for me.
Where did you go?
So I went to a lot of places. I went to New Zealand.
That's far away.
That's far away. A lot in Europe, like Spain, Portugal, Italy,
Had
Austria,
you spent
Germany.
time in those countries, or this was an opportunity to...
So I would have wished to spend more time, but I was spending 2 weeks at a time.
Right.
Because we were always like, okay, we need to be ready. So it was like, it's not like you can spend 6 months.
Right.
It wasn't a 6
You were
month
always
thing.
on a leash in a way.
Yeah, like on the starting block,
Right.
more better than a leash.
Right. Waiting for the gun.
We were waiting for the gun. We were waiting
Yeah.
for, if that permit is done, yes, we can move on. Let's
Right.
move on. So, no, and it was great. And I went to the Republic of Georgia, which really was also my very, very important trip for me. And
Laura Maniac just did a Georgian tasting the other night.
Yeah, it's a very big place to be. So
Yeah.
no, I was very lucky to do that, more teaching and everything. But we were ready to open, so it was just a lot of it's behind the scene, and you may know that, but it's not funny behind the scene.
So you opened Rouge Tomate in September of last year, so it hasn't been open that long. You opened in Chelsea on 18th Street, And let's talk a little about the restaurant, because it's definitely unique. It's a chef-driven, healthy menu. It's a curated wine list. Tell me about... I'm being very simplistic. I mean, there's a highly trained wine staff, the food, the wines, as you alluded to before. There's a whole vibe there. Try to, tie it all together for me.
Oh, it's a health-driven, delicious food and wine place. It's been the goal of Rouge since the beginning to try to show that you can eat really good food that is also healthy for you and also good for the planet. We are all at the restaurant, my chef Andy Bennett, my owner Emmanuel Verstraeten, and the whole team, my head bartender, everybody, we believe that the way you eat matters, makes you feel better, and it's not that complicated in a way, but you can do that every day of your life. So what we try to do at the restaurant is to show that it's possible to do it and to make it at the best level possible. And by moving downtown, we also wanted to showcase you can do it in a more approachable way. Like uptown, it was kind of a little bit easier, to eat for a certain type of clientele that is a bit more wealthy. But you can eat and drink very tasty, very high quality ingredients that are very good for your health. And today we all know that the way you eat matters more than ever, because we see all the health issue around us and the obesity problem and a lot of, and then you can go to agriculture and all that. And so the way you eat the food, and it's
not just for you and what's good for you. It's the farmers, the sustainability, the wines,
absolutely.
An eye towards pairing, right? I mean,
everything. And you can do that by making yourself happy. It's going through pleasure. But the increase of use of medication can be probably saved by better eating. And so this is what we are doing. And we work with a nutritionist, and we have been working with nutritional programs since 15 years with scientists to help us out to craft that. And so, but when you come to a restaurant, we first want you to have fun and to enjoy yourself. So we do all the work for you, basically. You just come and eat, and we have done the job before.
So all the offerings, the type of food, the wines, all that, has been thought out. You're starting to do a lot of other things too for the customer. You're doing spotlight flights, salon series. There's always something going on. I mean, the food is always there and the wine list is there, but there are other attractions. Talk about some of the things you've recently implemented.
Yeah, we also by going down, we wanted to make, as I said, the place very approachable. And one of the things is still wine seems to be very intimidating for so many people, and it's true. And when you go to a restaurant, the wine list we have is such a massive beast, and a lot of names that you don't know. So me and my team, and I'm very lucky, I work with two amazing sommeliers, Linda Violago and James Sly. We really want to make people happy and to share our passion about wine, so and beer and cocktails with my head bartender Christian Molina. So the idea was, okay, now we have that amazing space. It's in Midtown, from Midtown we moved to Chelsea. It's super easy to go to. I really want to share all this wine. So how can we make wine easy to understand for people, less snobby? So. And at a good price. So we did a lot of different, as you mentioned, different initiatives. So every week I'm popping up 4 bottles of wine that I wanted to compare by a flight that almost at cost, and you can compare this for one you may have never been able to compare. I'm doing a salon series.
That's the spotlight series.
That's the first spotlight. Yeah.
Where you take same.
Can be a
wine,
producer, can be
same producer,
can be a vintage, and I think that there is something to say between these 4 bottles, and we are here to take you through. The salon series is something I really thought about when I was during the break. I was like, oh, there is all this winemaker dinner, and it's always great, but you know what I realized? It's sometimes they're always the same. You always you talk about the wine and the vintage, the breaks and the pitch. And so I'm very lucky to know quite some people, and I realized that I have a lot of connection with wine lovers that are not at all in the wine industry but love the wine and could taught me so much. So they are scientists, writers, singers, poets, sculptors, monks that are going to come.
You're pulling everyone off the street.
Not every like wine lover.
Right. I didn't mean.
So the next one is with two fantastic scientists that wrote for me one of the best wine book that went out last year, called A Natural History of Wine, and Ian Tattersall and Robert de Salle work for the Museum of Natural History. And
in New York?
In New York, and they are scientists and anthropologists, and they are going to come and they are going to talk. We are going to do a whole pairing, we create all that, and we are going to talk about something way bigger than just a pH of the wine.
Right.
We are going to talk about anthropology of the wine in a very low-key environment.
Very cool. Different.
It's like this kind of dinner when you go and you want to share different fields. I think one has been segregating itself quite a lot and being quite snobby. So
that sounds great.
We have a lot to learn from everybody. So.
That sounds great. And then you also do winemaker dinners.
Yeah, and I'm still
like Riesling Fair, which you were part of. There was a big Riesling festival, so a lot of the German winemakers.
Yeah, we had Clemens Busch and Johannes Weber from Falkenstein, and Eva Frick popped up, and it's New York is amazing because you have winemaker all the time.
Every day there's something going on.
And so if we can become a place, and
there was a Barolo tasting today somewhere.
Yeah, there's a Barolo. There is an Egelmüller tasting this morning. There is people around all the time, and so it's so different, and you know that because you have been traveling to wine country. But the days that you shake the hand of the winemaker, you taste a glass with him, and like suddenly something is different. So
it's great.
If we can just make that happen at the restaurant, it's like friends that I'm welcoming. So
it's a really great environment. So you're a sommelier. You're a master sommelier. I think, like you mentioned earlier, some people get intimidated by a big wine list. They may be intimidated by a sommelier. I think if they walked into your place, I think that goes away a little. But what do you think the responsibility of a sommelier is? When somebody walks into your place and it's a wine-centric place, you have a responsibility to the customer. What do you think that is?
To make him feel good and happy.
Okay.
That's the first thing. Like, you don't build a program like that if you are not willing to... If it's just to impress... I think you are missing the point. It's not a restaurant business that you're opening, maybe something else or a wine bar.
You mean with big trophy bottles in Burgundy? You want accessibility and pairing and...
Yeah, or if you... it's like you can have any bottle that you want, but if you don't make yourself available for every type of knowledge or every type of desire from your clientele, yours doesn't make any sense,
Right.
So if you build a big program... Your duty is to make sure that everybody that comes to your restaurant is taken care of at the right level of information, knowledge, and attention that person deserves. Maybe that person doesn't know anything about wine, but want to, just have a great dinner with a date. You know what? We are going to make that happen, and it's my job to understand that is what's happening with that person. So
even if that person's a little intimidated, you know that you have to crack through and create the experience for them, right?
You're on the floor. I would really think that 99% of your job is to be a psychologist.
Okay.
You're on the floor. You are dealing with people first. We happen to deal with people through food and wine, but first and foremost, it's a social and human experience. So, whatever you want to do. We are dealing with people. If I didn't want to deal with people, I will be maybe a writer, or I will work in a different field in the wine industry. Right. But I work in a restaurant.
You have to have the desire, the patience. You have to have the psychological
it's a job.
Attitude to tap through and to get to everybody. And I'm sure your whole staff on the floor, does all of that.
Yeah, we want people that work with us to have the same mindset. We spend so many hours together. We need to share the same value. Yeah, if you are not working in a restaurant to take care of people,
right,
that doesn't make any sense. And so it's as you just asked me. But my responsibility is to make sure that whoever comes at the restaurant is taken care of with respect. And not dismissed because that person doesn't know wine. Like that is my biggest fear at the restaurant.
It sounds like a good combination. That kind of service, that kind of attention, that kind of food, a thought towards a terrific wine list. That's a great experience. All right, let's talk about wine now.
Yeah.
All right. So you got into natural, organic, biodynamic wines early, and I think you realize now it's a great thing. I mean, it's sort of building a sustainable wine economy. These wineries and the people that drink them are kind of aware of it. Let's talk about. I always ask. I think a lot of people are aware there's natural, organic, biodynamic wines. I think some people are very aware. Other people are drinking it and don't know about it. Tell me about what a natural wine is, and that's a broad category because you've dealt with it early on. You have a lot, but what is it?
Yeah, it's a big topic. Maybe not. I think the question or the problem with a natural wine is maybe the word natural. That is a complicated word to understand, to associate.
And we wrestle with that on this show. It's more the organic and natural is a broad.
It's a broad and maybe not because one of the easy way to say there is a natural wine. Say every wine is cultural. Like you can't if the wine is not conducted by somebody, it becomes vinegar.
Right.
No, natural wine and in broad, and I really like what the writer Alice Faring say about it, which is nothing added, nothing taken away. It's a certain idea to go back to the fact that wine historically must have been just fermented grape juice. So I see natural wine movement as a reaction to an over-industrialization of the wine industry, the way that we are seeing the same thing for agriculture. So
less intervention.
Yes, it's like how can we produce something that is delicious and that can, how can I say, that is stable without adding all the new technology we can use.
Right.
So it's a very broad subject, and it's like one of the comparison I use usually with my staff is like, wine is like your orange juice. The only problem with wine, you don't have any label, so you don't know what you drink. But when you go to the supermarket, you have the choice between getting orange, buying 100% freshly squeezed organic orange juice, up to buying something that is made with concentrated orange juice plus. So it's the same thing with wine. The same thing with wine. We went so far in the technology techniques that we went to a wine that was made and tweaked and become a product for a market, and we went so far that we forgot that wine may just be done with grape.
Right.
And so the natural movement came back from that, less intervention, but
transmitting the terroir.
Transmitting, yes, because wine is one of these very few things that you can drink or eat that can first you can keep for an incredible amount of time, and can indeed express nuances that are very unique to a place. Very few products that you can eat or drink can do that. Maybe cheese, maybe tea.
Right.
But when you think about it, so it's something unique, and it's that is a reality of wine. And so by the way you farm and by the way you make wine, you can tweak that. And at the end, unfortunately, today the consumer can't know or can't decide, because the biggest problem is one of the big, like all the talk about natural wine, blah blah blah, blah, could end tomorrow if we had the list of ingredients on a bottle of wine.
Right.
We could just choose tomorrow.
It's one of the few agricultural products that
doesn't mention ingredients.
Right.
And there is a lot of authorized ingredients.
People are so passionate about wine, they want to know everything, and
people want you to buy the romance.
Right.
But behind the additives and natural wine, I think what is even more crucial is today wine is part of viticulture. Viticulture is probably the sexiest part of agriculture.
Right.
Agriculture is a very complicated subject today, and I don't think we realize what's happening in terms of control of the seeds and control of the pesticides and what is really put on a plant and how that plant is grown.
In the U.S., I think beyond wine,
it's a little bit more
genetically modified,
absolutely,
and
you got
pesticides and corporations that control it.
It's a big thing. It's a hot subject.
My understanding is there's less of that going on in Europe, genetically modified.
It's changing.
Still, no, I'm
there
aware
is a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
And the thing with viticulture, they are showing, and this is to make a great wine without having to add any additives to make your wine stable. You have to be an amazing farmer. Your understanding...
It starts with farming.
It starts with farming. Instead of with biodiversity, you start to understand the relationship with the plant and that plant's environment, and that you can't do it just by relying on numbers that told you to spray that specific treatment at that. We are talking back about rethinking the way we farm. And the thing with biodynamic, organic, and natural wine, they can produce outstanding wine without using a biotechnical industry.
Right.
And I think that is the biggest question. And when people are telling me, I don't want to drink this wine because there is sulfur added, I'm like, no, I think the right question you should ask yourself is how that one has been farmed. How as the vineyard has been farmed,
right.
how the plant has been taken care of, how the macro environment has been taken care of.
Right.
Sulfur is a secondary question.
People are caught up on sulfur. It gives me a headache. In Europe they don't put sulfur. It goes. You're right. It goes way beyond.
It's a tree hiding the forest.
Right. You start with the land, how you handle the land, growing the grapes, all that. I'm glad you pointed that out, because when you look at wine, it goes very deep. It's not just does this have sulfur or not.
It goes very deep, and it's today just because we are talking all over the world about wine, and wine which is crazy pricing and the price of the land and all that.
Right.
Wine is under the microscope, and we can talk, and there is the proof that there is alternative farming techniques that works by paying attention to that biodiversity. What's happening with the seeds industry today, or what's the problem with all the bees dying? I don't think we realize how far we have been in a certain direction today.
A little scary.
It's scary, but it's if we don't react, or if we don't say there is an alternative way, maybe your wine is not as perfect. Maybe your wine, and it's the comparison also I'm using with my staff, is when you work with this type of wine, you don't work with ready-to-drink wine. It's not the wine is not going to have the same taste every single time.
Right.
But you know what? This is the beauty of wine. Otherwise, what's the point of putting a vintage?
Right.
What's the point of putting an appellation? There is no point.
Well, let's talk about some wines. Let's start with your favorite wine and wine region. Pascaline is probably one of the great ambassadors and cheerleaders of Chenin Blanc, which is a wine indigenous to where she grew up. So let's talk about Chenin Blanc, because it is a terrific wine.
Yep.
Chenin Blanc give me a quick background on it.
It's the greatest grape.
The greatest grape, period. Good night. See you next year.
See you next year. So Chenin is a white grape variety, indigenous from the Loire Valley. So where I grew up is on the northwestern side of France, along the river the Loire. DNA-wise, it's linked to a grape from the Jura, and the Eastern Europe we call Savagnin or Traminer, and an unknown parent we don't really know.
Not Sauvignon, Savagnin. Savagin. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And Chenin has been historically grown in the Loire since probably 9th century. We have traces of mention of the grape, and spread out in the world. And today's the biggest planting of Chenin, in fact, in South Africa, where it's known under the name Steen. So Chenin is, as I said, it's a white grape variety, and it's spread out around the world because it's a grape variety that holds up very well acidity. So it's a high acid grape.
Which is a good food grape.
It's a grape that requires quite a long growing season. And
growing is very important, because it's not very forgiving.
It's not forgiving.
If it's harvested too early, it
doesn't
can
have
be
any
bitter or not
taste.
sweet. Right.
Yeah, absolutely.
It can be very plain.
It can be very plain. So it's a grape that is a little bit tricky to grow. So it's why also you don't see it everywhere. And California and South Africa, it was really used for this acidity and the fact that it can be very high yield. And so kind of blend. But in the Loire, he achieved since century an extraordinary reputation. First for sweet wine, because he was famous for sweet wine because of his acidity and the ability of the grape to take very well what we talked about with the EKM, which is a botrytis, so the noble rot. So it's a little fungus that developed in very specific condition and allows to concentrate sugar, acid, aromatics, and so on. And Chenin in the Loire does that very, very well. So has been a grape variety that has been very recognized, especially in a time, and it was not that far ago, when sugar was so highly appreciated because sugar was expensive and, you could get it with wine. So this wine were very, very sought after. So Chenin, from the medieval time until very recently, were very famous for sweet wine. But
it's a versatile grape.
Sweet
being one of the things it does well.
But Chenin can make every style of wine, from absolutely bone dry, very mineral-driven, very austere, almost like Chablis-esque, to extraordinary powerful, ripe, 14.5, 15% alcohol, barrel fermentation with malolactics that can remind you of powerful white Châteauneuf-du-Pape or white Hermitage, everything in between, bubbles.
Sparkling.
Absolutely great bubbles, and this crazy sweet wine. So, and it's a very, it's a grape very heavily influenced by the soil type. So depending on which type of...
There are multiple appellations, right?
Multiple appellations.
So there's a difference in soil type, regions.
Absolutely, and that gives you a very different flavor profile and structural profile. So at the end, that grape I think, is the greatest grape because of that versatility, that edgeworthiness. You can drink some wine from the 1910s, 1920s right now from Huet, and they are stunning. And very few grape in the world can do that.
And unlike 1910 Chablis,
I don't know. I never tried.
It's a very value-driven wine. It's a very
value-driven wine.
It's the whole package that way.
Yeah.
So look for Chenin Blanc. Pascaline said, South Africa is probably the country that took Chenin and really ran with it. They call it Steen, S-T-E-E-N.
Yeah, but the planting in South Africa for a long time was done with, and it's the same thing in California, they were using it for bulk wine. So they were using it as a blending agent because Chenin has this ability to keep the acid with the heat, and so they could really make a mix. So it was not known as a single grape variety, except very few exceptions in California, one of them being Chaplet, that was very famous for its Chenin Blanc. And I'm still looking to drink some Chaplet from the late 1960s. So if you have a bottle of wine, let me know. But it was funny because recently I was at Bern's Steakhouse in Florida.
The greatest wine list in America, right?
Insane wine list. Insane. And so they showed me.
That's Bern's, B-E-R-N, is in Tampa.
It's in Tampa.
And it hasn't been around forever. I think maybe the late 50s, 60s.
Yeah, it's a mecca for wine lover.
But it's a mecca for wine.
You need to go. It's amazing.
If it's impressing Pascaline, they got their chops.
It's definitely worth when I went last time. I took a flight at 4:00, at 3:00 in New York to have dinner, and I flew back at 5 a.m. just to have dinner at Bern's.
Worth everything.
But they had a 1985 wine list on display.
Wow.
And I look at the Chenin page for California, and there were 45 names. I thought
nowhere else.
I was 1985, and now today there is no Chenin on the list, but it's okay. But if you really want to get into Chenin, there is a definite revival of the grape, both in California today and in South Africa, where the grape is considered for itself and not anymore as a blending agent. Right. But I really highly recommend to first build your palate on a grape with the Loire, because the wine are cheaper, and I think there is just a better transparency in terms of the ability of the grape, just because the grape has been more used there, and you have just pay attention to where it's from, because we have really two different soil type, and you have the schist on the western side and the limestone on the eastern side, and depending on these two guys, the flavor profile is very different. As I said, schist is going to be dry and powerful and a bit tannic and phenolic.
So that's your style, schist, and the other style?
The limestone, usually no malolactic fermentation, so higher acid, some off-dry wine, slightly off-dry, like in Vouvray and Montlouis, a bit of residual sugar to balance out the acid, and way more, a bit fruitier and lifted. So they are very different styles, and don't be surprised about these styles. It's normal that there is so many styles.
Right. I want to ask you one more question. We're going to take a break after I ask you the question. We're going to come back. I want you to answer my wine list, a bunch of questions, and then you and I are going to taste a little wine, and I want you to tell me what you think. So we're talking to Pascaline Lepeltier from Rouge Tomate, and what I wanted to ask you before we broke is, I know you're still excited about Chenin, which is great, but tell me, and we could go on for hours and do this, but tell me another wine and regions that excite you now of late.
There is so many of them. New York Finger Lakes excite me. I really think there is a super...
They're doing it well?
There is a super potential.
Do you know Chris Matheson from Bellwether?
I know Chris.
He's coming on at the end of the month.
He is a great
We want to talk about
guy.
Finger Lake wines and Riesling, and I thought he'd be a great guy.
And you were absolutely right.
Yes.
So Finger Lakes and Ontario, in general, like all that part also of Canada, all
Talk to me about Ontario. What is available? What are the Canadian wines?
So you find more and more of them.
I know there's sweet wines up there.
There is in the apple side, but there is a huge push for Chardonnay, Pinot Noir,
They're
Cabernet
making
Franc.
it up there?
Yeah, and it's absolutely appropriate. I think all this area by the lakes are going to really be very interesting, especially if global warming continue to have an impact. But all that part of Northern America, I think there is a lot of things to be done there. And with vinifera, like the classic grapes that you know, and I think also with hybrids and with natives. I think that needs to be thought about and considered. So that is very exciting for me.
So Finger Lakes,
Ontario.
Give me one more.
I go for. I really like Georgia, the Republic of Georgia. Seriously, it's. I know it's also trendy to talk about that, but it's
not new, but it's kind of new. I mean, it's kind of hitting.
Finally,
yeah. There was a bunch of offerings at the Raw Wine Fair in Brooklyn where I met you. And Laura from Cork Buzz did a tasting, so it's nice that it's starting to. And they're interesting wines, you're saying.
They are. They're superb wine. But there is one last region that you should dig into because it's not yet overpriced. I think there is gems. It's the southwest of France.
Which is?
It's a big area, but between Cahors and Jurançon and Irouléguy. So it's a lot of names you may have never heard of. Maybe Cahors, birthplace of Malbec.
I couldn't pronounce them either. You're so eloquent.
It's like, 36 years of being French. But southwest, if you're looking for extraordinary value wine, both red and white, with a lot of edgeworthiness, put your nose there.
Okay.
There is a lot of stuff happening.
Southwest France. All right, Pascaline, we're going to take a break. You're listening to the Grape Nation on the Heritage Radio Network. We're talking to Pascaline Lepeltier, and we're going to be back, and Pascaline's going to answer our wine list, and like I said, we're going to taste some wines.
Today's program is brought to you by the Wisconsin Milk Marketing Board. Wisconsin produces the world's best cheese, period. Why? Lush grasslands, glacial water supply, fourth-generation cheesemakers, combining old world tradition with the new ideas and highest standards. The very best milk. What do you think of when you think of Wisconsin cheese? For me, I think cheese curds, delicious fresh cheese curds, or deep-fried cheese curds. Cheese curds literally any way, anytime, any place. I think about Andy Hatch and Upland's Cheese Company, the operation behind the Pleasant Ridge Reserve cheese that's literally America's most awarded cheese. I think of the deliciously stinky Limburger and its long storied history. I think about Raleigh's Dumbarton Blue, a perfect blend of English-style cheddar and notes of blue. I think of Emmy Roth's Grand Cru sur Choix, which was named 2016's World Champion at the World Championship Cheese Contest. Wisconsin is like the world champion of cheese, and once you start reading the list of cheeses made in Wisconsin on their website, you can see why. The Wisconsin Milk Marketing Board is a nonprofit organization funded entirely by Wisconsin's dairy farm families. Read more at eatwisconsincheese.com, and as soon as you're done listening to this podcast, eat Wisconsin cheese. It's a no-brainer.
We're back. We're back with Pascaline Lepeltier from Rouge Tomate, New York City. And we are going to subject Pascaline to our wine list. We're going to ask her a bunch of questions and pay close attention because Pascaline knows her shit. So there'll be some good recommendations here. All right. So this is a kind of a static list. We do it the same one with everybody. What are you drinking now? Now, you may have answered that during the show, but I'm talking about what's exciting you, what's on the table, what you're tasting. I could answer part of it. You could say Riesling because you were at the fair.
Yeah.
But tell me something, that you're paying attention to.
Sour beer.
Sour beer.
And cider.
Okay, and you're serving that at the restaurant.
Yep, and we're going to serve
Now,
more.
why? You want to taste more, get to know it more? You always loved it?
I loved it. I like to drink that a lot, and I want to work for beer, cider, and spirits. I want to work with more pairing on that side.
Okay.
I want to kind of see how it go so well with food. So I work a lot. We are working quite a lot on that with my team.
So tell me, sour beer is beer that
it's beer that
that's sour.
has been polluted with bacteria, which is like in a way
it's cultures or something that changes
yeah,
it.
So no, I spent some time in Belgium, so I drank a lot of Gueuze and Lambic in Belgium, where it's kind
Lambic is a fruit.
The food and the mother country of sour beer. So there is spontaneous fermentation beers that are very high in acid, with sour acid.
So good for food.
So good for food.
Can you name me a brand you like that's available out there?
Like my favorite brand is called Cantillon.
Spell.
Cantillon.
Okay.
But now there is a lot of great breweries.
Right. So the category is kind
I love
of
that.
And cider is becoming an incredible art.
And yes, cider, forage cider from New York. I really think New York should be way more known for its cider.
Right.
So a lot of cider.
We have a couple of shows where they focus on cider and beer.
Yeah.
I mean, we have some really great
We have
guys.
some strong show on the radio,
Yes.
on the network.
Yeah, I mean, we advocate that type of stuff. All right, so those are great suggestions. We bring in one of the great wine people, and she gives us beer. See? You never know what you're going to get on the Grape Nation. All right, favorite wine and food pairing?
Chenin.
Okay, wait, that was a dumb question.
Chenin and everything.
I should have said, what do you pair with Chenin?
Everything.
But what is a classic pairing?
In my region is Chenin and Rillette.
Which is?
It's pork rillettes.
Okay.
That we do
R-I-L-L-E-T-E-T-S, whatever.
Yeah, so we do that. And
So Chenin and pork.
Chenin and pork, but Chenin and fish,
Okay.
Chenin and everything.
Right, it's that versatile. All right, you got to get yourself outside of yourself for a second. Your favorite wine restaurant and or bar. And I'm going to ask you to give me the double edition, which is New York. And you've traveled, so you can give me anywhere outside of New York. Could be Europe, could be California, whatever. But tell me a favorite wine restaurant.
In New York,
bar.
I love Racine. Racine and 10 Bells. But if it's a restaurant...
Those are very wine-centric, great food offering places.
Yes.
Racine, R-A-C-I-N-E, downtown.
Yeah, that is definitely one of my favorites for wine and food.
Yeah.
Both are fantastic.
It's very similar to you, chef-driven, terrific food.
Oh, yeah. I have a tremendous respect for their work.
And 10 Bells, you said?
I love to go to 10 Bells.
Okay.
And 10 Bells and Compagnie des Vins Naturels are two places where I really
Caleb.
Caleb is doing a fantastic job. I really like to drink at those places.
I walked by there Friday and begged him to come on the show, and I think he'll come on.
I can put a word for you.
Okay. I'm going to hit you up on that. All right. Now give me something outside of New York. You could tap into Europe, France. I mean, there's not a place that
It's super tough. For wine and food together.
Yeah, I mean, the focus goes to wine.
The
Not just a
focus-
great restaurant, but a restaurant that,
Where I'm going to have a blast with a wine list. Oh my God!
and
there is
happy with the food.
And happy with
You're
the food.
thinking too hard and
I'm
long.
thinking,
That wasn't
but there
the
is
point of this.
Too many places. I like Septime in Paris.
Okay.
I like Septime.
Is there a Septime in New York? Or
No,
is it,
there is no.
That's spring, I'm thinking.
There
of.
is no Septime.
Septime. And they
Yeah.
have a wine cave or a...
They have a very good little wine list.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, so those are good answers. All right. Favorite all-time wine? Probably that the Akim. Or do you have something besides that?
For my all-time wine favorites.
Your all-time favorite wine. Chenin.
Yes.
No, but come on. Or
Okay,
give me a vintage year.
No. You know, I will drink forever Muscadet.
Muscadet?
A good Muscadet.
And Muscadet is a great food wine.
It's an amazing food wine.
It's inexpensive.
I call that mineral water.
Yes.
Yeah, it's like your 11% alcohol, delicious, salty wine.
Muscadet comes up on this list a lot. So you are the perfect person. Give me a couple of producers
Of Muscadet, with pleasure. That deserve...
that are available and worth going out and buying.
Yes, so Jo Landron, Landron, amazing.
Joe Landron.
Jo Landron, amazing
Okay.
stuff. Domaine de l'Écu, ECU, Marc Olivier,
Marc Olivier.
superbe.
Lepeltier.
La Pépier, Luno Papin, fantastic. Julien Brettaudeau,
And we're talking wines
that costs
14,
15 bucks.
15, right.
And you can keep for 25 years. I have still
They do really hold up that well?
I have some 19, like right now on the list we're going to put a bunch of 1990s, but I have some 1989 still at my parents' house. So yeah, when it's well done, Muscadet is amazing.
So favorite all-time wine is a Muscadet because of the versatility.
You can drink it anywhere.
So the next
And-
question... Did I interrupt you? What
No,
were
no,
you gonna-
absolutely not.
The next question, this may play into that. Best wine under $15 or around $15. Give me a red, give me a white. We could certainly say Muscadet for the white, but I'm going to make you think and give me another one. Give me a red.
A red
Inexpensive red.
$15 on
That ballpark.
on a in a wine shop in New York. Mm-hmm. Oh, that's a tough one.
The red is very tough.
The red is very tough. So I will go to the southwest of France.
Okay, it
Côte
doesn't have to be just France.
No, but in terms of price for value, the two best countries for me are Italy and France.
Okay.
That's hands off. If you want great
So
quality.
what are you saying for 15?
So Côte de Duras, Côte du Marmandais, all the unknown appellation of the southwest, you can find gem there that are Merlot Cabernet based.
Give me, you got a specific
So yes,
producer?
Mout Le Bihan, Mouthes Lebihan,
Okay.
Mout Le Bihan and Eliane Darroze are producing gems, Merlot
For that price range.
price.
Terrific.
And for a white, you can go to, I think one of, but there is a very great producer I love, and the wine are dirt cheap and they're so delicious. It's from, it's the Muscadet of Spain. It's a Chacolina in Spain. So Chacolina is by San Sebastian.
That's the wine is called?
So it's the appellation. It's
Appellation? Spell it for me.
T-X-A-K,
Oh, okay.
Chaco, O-L-I-N-A, is Basque.
Right.
And the producer is Bengueche. Bengoetxe. That stuff is out of the world delicious. Bengueche from Chacoli is like...
That's a great recommendation. You know what has come up a few times for reds? I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right. Envinante?
Yeah, Envignate.
Four guys in Spain that are making... Are they
And-
making some good stuff there?
Envignate is fantastic.
And a good value,
Everything
right?
you can grab from Envignate, grab it.
All right, so last question. I asked you to come on the show because I think you're a wine person and a somm that's making a difference out there. I'm curious to ask you who out there is doing a good job. And a good job is defined by what you think it is, not me. Who's doing it right?
There is really a lot of people, you know. I think the New York community of sommelier today is probably the strongest in the world.
You mentioned a bunch of them. Are you like 10 Bells?
I like Séverine at 10 Bells, Caleb at the company, Michael Engelman,
is
fantastic
doing a great job.
wine director at the Modern, Arnaud
Right.
Tronche at Racine. You can go on and on and on. There is just a really...
So New York is chock full of people that really care, and we just mentioned a few. So.
And we can, we still have somebody like Paul Greco. Like Paul has been
what you are to Chenin. Paul is to Riesling,
and to mentoring a lot of people.
Right.
I think the influence
goes
of somebody
deeper than just being a cheerleader.
Yeah, no, Paul has been.
Yes.
I huge respect for Paul.
Yes. And we didn't talk a lot about Riesling, but Riesling is one of the great white wines.
Yes. Second to Chenin, but I totally agree.
Yes. You neglected, and I'll give you a chance, because after you answer this, we're going to taste wine, and then I'm going to send you back to work. You neglected to tell me your other favorite beverage with alcohol in it.
I'm a big chartreuse fan.
Okay, chartreuse is that green stuff. Now, tell us a teeny bit about chartreuse. Chartreuse is what? It's a concoction of...
It's a concoction of more than 100 plants that has been... that is a recipe given to monks during the medieval time, to the Carthusian monk. And today only 2 monks know the recipe, and they are still producing that recipe in their distillery in the Alps. With all these plants that nobody exactly knows the amount or the name.
Right. It's botanicals and herbs and everything,
so it's
right?
a plant-based liqueur from that secret recipe that have been given during the medieval time with honey. There is 2 colors of chartreuse. You have yellow, a bit sweeter and lower alcohol and a bit softer. And you have the green, a bit more pungent. You have the one version without aging, or very little aging, and you have the VEP, which is an extended aging in cask.
How do you drink it? Straight, iced? Do you mix?
So I keep it always at my place. So I have chartreuse at my place all the time, and I always keep it in a freezer, and I drink it chilled.
Just chilled straight.
Chilled straight.
And when do you drink it? After a dinner?
All the time. Breakfast.
Anytime.
Yeah, I can drink chartreuse.
So there's no...
No, it's more an after dinner drink.
It is more after dinner.
But it was considered a medication too. So when
is it a digestive?
Absolutely.
Okay, so it's a fun thing to drink after a meal.
It's very, very, very powerful and strong, and I highly recommend if you buy a bottle of chartreuse to age it, and to keep it for a while, because it's the only spirits in the world I know that improved in a bottle.
And there's a producer, what is it, Tarragon or Tarragon?
So Tarragon is when the monks were kicked out of France, because at one point the church split with the state, and the Carthusian monk were kicked out from their place in the Alps, and they had to find a new place to produce the chartreuse. And they went to Tarragona in Spain, and so they produced the chartreuse there for a while.
It's good?
It's fantastic, but the condition of aging were different. So people are saying Tarragona chartreuse had a different taste because you are by the ocean, by the sea, and warmer climate than the Alps. And so then they moved back to Voiron, where they are right now, and the Tarragona are extraordinarily looked after. Collector items that can reach thousands of dollars.
Really? I was going to say, if you go out and buy chartreuse, is it readily available, and what kind of price are we looking at?
So the entry-level chartreuse are absolutely widely available, and it's, I don't know the retail, but $40 to $100 more, like $150.
Not cheap, not crazy expensive.
No, but you can keep that forever.
Forever. And if you keep it, it's good.
It's good, and the collector one, you can go, I'm talking about tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah, forget that.
But I'm going to do a dinner at the restaurant with one of the monks that...
Wow, that'd be great.
So it's happening in June.
That would be great. If people want to follow Rouge Tomate mailing list, they can go online, or how should they get on a mailing list or stay in touch?
They can go on the website and they just sign up for it's on the front page.
What's the website address?
It's rougetomate.nyc.com.
Okay, don't forget the NYC. All right, Pascaline, we're going to do our almost last segment, and it's called the Weekly Wine Sip. Every week we taste a different wine on air. For our Weekly Wine Sip this week with Pascaline, we're going to taste a 2014. Pascaline, do you know what it is?
It's
Ridge, Lighton Springs.
I was wondering if it was
from
more vet or
Sonoma, which is Dry Creek Valley. Lighton Springs is from Fabled Ridge Vineyards and winemaker Paul Draper, who's a legend. It's a blended wine of Zinfandel, Petit Syrah, Carignan, Mourvèdre, and the alcohol 14.4. Is that medium, hot, or?
For Ridge, is for that area, I think is in what it should be. It
Right.
can be a bit higher. So it's a very warm area
Right.
of the valley. So
The wine retails for $35 to $45, depending where you get it, and it's readily available at better wine stores. Can you tell me a little more about the wine, or I said it all?
it's an iconic wine. I'm a big fan of Ridge. I think Ridge, has been one. Is my first American one I tried was a Ridge Montebello,
Right.
which is like their benchmark wine from the Santa Cruz Mountain. But no, Lighton Spring, I was lucky to visit a couple of times in Fancy Estate. And Ridge, year in, year off, produces cult wine. Cult not as what you should worship, but
Well, no, cult in its own way.
it's in a way because they really kept the faith of
Right.
great American wine. And I think Paul Draper has had that vision and stick to his vision through all the trends and all the passionista and all that stuff.
Right.
And this wine really, for me, in terms of price per value, history, aging potential, absolutely deserve an amazing amount of respect. It's a beautiful vineyard to Lighton Spring,
Yes.
with all this old, gnarly, curly vineyard. When you think everybody pulled out vines, these old vines to
Right.
plant something
All right,
else.
so let's give it a sniff. Let's throw it over the tongue and let's evaluate it. So first, sight, deep, dark.
Yeah, it's a
Purple.
concentrated ruby wine with like a little bit of purple.
What do you get on the nose?
But I was telling you, I was getting that sun-kissed red fruit.
Oh, you are? Okay, what
Yeah.
else? You said a little oak.
Yeah, you get a touch of all these spices that reminds you of toasting of the oak. So the very soft, bitter chocolate and like all that
You get a
toasted
little
baking
black
spices.
cherry.
Yeah, and when you taste it, you have this combination of you can see it's old vine, in fact, because you have at the same time concentration of the fruit, but very high acid. And it's like when you get a liqueur of something, of a kind, like a cassis, a blackcurrant liqueur, when you get at the same time the sweetness, but there is this pungency. And that, I think, for me, is really the trademark of the old vine. And it's not sweet per se, like jammy. There's a lot of savouriness
But there's
aspect,
savory and fruit.
herbs.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful wine. I think
It's got a medium mouthfeel. It's not...
it's a medium plus mouthfeel. Like there
Yeah.
is definitely power because it's ripe. You get the lusciness of the Zinfandel, but the Carignan,
It is medium plus.
it's medium plus. A
The
little-
more I drink it, the more
Yeah.
it's a little more mouth and tongue cutting.
and it's a baby. You can see because the tannin are still a bit grapey right now.
Yes.
So if you had to open that bottle right now, I would highly recommend to go with the meat or with something with a little bit of fat, just because you're going to play with the tannin. And when the wine's going to age, because this one aged so well.
Right.
Seriously, it's the age.
So this is a young wine.
This is
You
a
could
baby
drink
wine.
it now, and one of my questions is, what would you pair it with? And you said meats.
Yeah,
it
you-
holds up well. to
But you
meat.
need to play with that tannin quality. So
But tell me about the palate. I mean, the flavors. Give me some other descriptors.
you get a lot of florality too, like a lot of this dried rose petal and a
Yes.
bit of the violet.
A little
is here.
violet for sure.
And the herbs, like you have the thyme, the rosemary, a lot of herb,
The savory.
the savory Provençal herbs, and
Little
that,
pepper and spice too.
a certain umami quality, like a soy sauce quality at the end. And
It's a delicious wine.
and black tea, a lot of black tea. I love this wine. I love Lighton Spring.
do we like the 2014? I know it's young, but it's drinking well for a 14 out of the bottle.
I really like everything that Ridge is making. I've never been disappointed by one Ridge wine.
So if you're impatient, when would this be good? 3 years from now? 2, 5? And then if you're really patient,
I always try to avoid the 2 to 5 years after bottling. So the wine is good for me usually a year after bottling. like still fragrant. Like it's a
Then you
generality.
think it closes down
Then it
or
closes down and then reopen up after. So
1 and then after 5.
yeah,
Okay.
1.5 and after 5.
Okay, so Pascaline and I like this wine.
Good choice. Thanks.
I'm very proud of myself for not bringing a Chenin Blanc in or a French wine and making Pascaline drink American wines. All right, Pascaline, we're pretty much done. If you have a question or a wine happening or an event, hit me up at sam@thegrapenation. That's sam@thegrapenation.com. Follow us on Facebook at The Grape Nation, Twitter at Ben Ruby, and Instagram at SBenRuby. And Pascaline, fill in the blanks for me. We talked about if you want more information about Rouge Tomate, go to Rouge Tomate New York City on the website .com. There's a ton of stuff going on there, so it would be a fun site and mailing list to be on.
Yeah, and we put a lot of things on our Instagram too, so at Rouge Tomate.
Yes, follow Pascaline on Instagram at Pascaline Lepeltier, right?
Yeah.
At Pascaline Lepeltier. One thing I didn't ask you, and it didn't come up, and I just want to check it out. Are you writing a book with Alice?
Yeah.
Is that something that's coming out in the next year or so? Alice Fearing, who's the Wall Street Journal.
Alice was a contributor to a lot of,
right.
And she's an author and has Alice Fearing, the Firing newsletter line,
Right.
the Firing line. Yeah, we are doing a book. It's supposed to be launched late spring, early summer. So it's happening.
Are you there, or you're not ready yet?
We are almost there.
Okay. And what is the book going to be about?
It's about dirt.
Dirt.
It's
how
about
dirt affects wine and all?
Yeah, it's a book for beginners, and we are introducing the wine world through soil type, or like primary soil, bedrock type, in fact. And so it's breaking down all the greatest wet region we love by volcanic and igneous soil and like metamorphic and sedimentary soil.
You were in France less than a couple of weeks ago.
Yeah.
When you were there, I mean, is that the type of stuff you were working on? You know, doing some final
we're finalizing
soil tests, bring back like a suitcase full of dirt?
I did that already.
You
No,
did?
no.
Okay.
No, we are tweaking something. But like the book, we are in a very, 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 very last
Is there
rereading.
a title? Or we're not ready to talk about it yet?
The Dirty Guide to Wine.
The Dirty Guide to Wine. Look out for that. I will be in touch with Pascaline, and in later shows, we'll talk about when it comes out. All right. Thank you to our guest, Pascaline Lepeltier from Rouge Tomate in New York.
Thanks a lot.
It
was
was
a good
great
time.
having you on. We would love to have you back.
Thanks for the wine.
Thank you to our engineer, Vitor, and everyone at the Heritage Radio Network. I'm Sam Ben Ruby, and you have been listening to The Grape Nation.
Thanks for listening to Heritage Radio Network, food radio supported by you. For our freshest content and to hear about exclusive events, subscribe to our newsletter. Enter your email at the bottom of our website, heritageradionetwork.org. Connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at heritage_radio. Heritage Radio Network is a nonprofit organization driving conversations to make the world a better, fairer, more delicious place. And we couldn't do it without support from listeners like you. Want to be a part of the food world's most innovative community? Rate the shows you like, tell your friends, and please join our community by becoming a member. Just click on the beating heart at the top right of our homepage. Thanks for listening.